if it's a contractual thing, then I think that McFarlane needs to stop saying things out loud when he's doing like panels or whatever. Todd himself, I'm talking about Todd, where he talks about being a private company. It's all about the optics. Like, I've been listening to some like podcasts that he's been guesting in recently on YouTube, on podcast streaming platforms, audio platforms, etc. And even that panel that he did where he was talking to investors and retailers at New York Comic Con. And frequently he brings up the concept about how he's a private company. He doesn't have to like answer to anyone. And I'm like, that's great. But when shit like this happens with the Fallout series and you're charging $70 with a figure that has with a set that has no accessories, one of the figures is very blatantly a repaint of an existing figure. You could tell right off the bat. It shouldn't constitute one towards the other. If you're doing a repaint of a figure, then that should afford you to include accessories. And the Fallout property is not the only victim of this. We just saw it recently with that Crimson, I can't remember what it's called, but it's that red Doomslayer, which is basically the elite Doomslayer, only he doesn't have the fabric faux fur cape. He doesn't have any die-cast pieces. It's all plastic now. And then he's been stripped away of an awful lot of cool paint applications to afford it into being a singular release, but it's still being charged at like $30. He only has the shotgun and that's it. And now I'm looking at the Elite Edition going, okay, am I grateful that I at least got a taste of what the Elite Edition, could have been all about? Yeah. And I still have the figure. It's in my storage unit. But knowing that later down the line, you're going to take pre-existing Elite Editions and just, wipe them down and be like, okay, now they're $30. I'm like, well, then why have the Elite Edition? Take those resources and do something else. Am I crazy? Now, could there be a potential game plan to make amends for this fallout from the fallout? Fallout from the fallout, because there's definitely been some fallout here. It's not even a play on words anymore. There's been some legitimate fallout regarding their Fallout live stream and their Fallout figures. Could they make amends on that? If a leaked list is to be believed, it's possible. I'm not saying it's like a slam dunk, but it's possible. Over on the McFarlane Toys Facebook group, a couple of leaked documents have made their way over there. One of which comes from Axiom Figures, which is kind of a reliable source. Whenever he or she or they, whatever, post these things, gotta be honest, their batting average is not too bad. So here we have one that was posted on October 21st. So I've been kind of holding on to this and kind of waiting to see what kind of develops as it's been posted. And since then, there's been some congruence. There's been some things shown on here that have shown up a couple more times in other posts. And that's what makes me think, okay, maybe where there's smoke, there's fire. And here, we have a list of some characters. And I don't know in what capacity they're going to be showing up. But you have Laura Fleas, I have no idea what that is. Black Condor, which I think was touched upon, I think was shown at the New York Comic Con panel. Black Condor. Batman Damian. Batman White Lantern. Kryptonite Prop Replica 1-1. Please don't tell me that's just going to be a f***ing crystal like this. Gagbuster, I don't know what that is. That sounds explicit. Starman, Shazam, Power Shazam, I don't know what that's pulled from. Black Canary Collector's Edition, I believe that's been referenced before in a document. Captain Marvel Jr. Collector Edition. Vigilante Collector Edition. Supergirl First Appearance, so she's going to get the first appearance treatment. Lobo number 1. Batman Hush 2. Let's pray to God he's not just using the Hush book again, just repeating it. But then we get into some interesting territory. It looks like finally the deluxe theatrical edition wave is now being given the Superman treatment. The way that we were having with Batman Returns, it looks like we're now getting some checkbox being fulfilled regarding Superman. Starting with a deep cut here, but one that I'm pretty certain a lot of people were kind of fiending for, and justifiably so. Brandon Routh, Superman Returns 2006 theatrical edition. Right below that, though, you'll see that you have a theatrical edition Superman BVS 2016. Now, that one's curious because, on the one hand, this would be like release number what? 3 or 4 of Cavill Superman? If anything, this shouldn't be BVS Superman. This should be Man of Steel Superman because I don't think we've had a McFarlane Man of Steel Superman. BVS Superman has been done, I think, like now 3 times. We've had the black and silver version, I believe a red and blue variant that came out around the time that the Zack Snyder cut got released, and then the cloth cape version that came with that Doomsday 2-pack, which I've lambasted. Well, the Doomsday figure I lambasted. The Superman is actually not too bad, and I like the fact that it's got the cloth cape. And then, if you want to get even more technical, we have the black and white editions that are going to be bundled with whoever pledged at that tier for the Batmobile Kickstarter or crowdfund, whatever you want to call it. So that's already like 4 or 5 editions of Cavill Superman. Give us of a BVS Cavill Superman. I think this should be Man of Steel Cavill Superman with slightly longer mullet-er hair, slightly more muted suit with like the circle belt buckle in the front instead of the square one, and a slightly longer cape. That'd be nice. And will feel slightly fresher and still have your cake and eat it too. And pull the BVS one and just change little things on it and still keep the sculpt, the same blueprint. There you go. You have a little bit of your repaint habits, but at the same time, you're fulfilling a version that we haven't gotten yet. Color me even more surprised when underneath we have Theatrical Deluxe Edition Superman 78. So what's that going to be? Because we technically already got Christopher Reeve Superman, except when he came out, he wasn't Theatrical Deluxe, he was Collector's Edition. And that does bring forth a bit of a fear. In fact, let's mention this last entry here. Theatrical Deluxe 7-inch Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. We've already gotten Bane twice as a Build-A-Figure, which arguably wasn't handled that greatly, and as a gold label Platinum Chase variant that came with the coat. So I'm guessing that this release here at the bottom, this Theatrical Deluxe Edition, is going to be that same Bane, but now he's going to come with a removable coat. He might have like a broken cowl piece for when he fights Batman. What else might he come with? Maybe the motorcycle helmet from the stock exchange scene. I don't know. But that's what kind of also feeds into a little bit of a fear that I have. Especially with this mention of a Theatrical Deluxe Edition 78 Superman. Because we already got 78 Superman, and he was a collector's edition with quite an awful lot of bit of accessories. Are we replacing Collector's Edition, the brand of Collector's Edition, with Theatrical Deluxe Edition and not changing anything from within? But this wasn't the only leaked document. There were some others that actually came out just a few days ago. This one being a really, really big one. And if anything, it kind of shares a little bit. That's just Twitter with the McFarlane Toys post. So let me close this one. So just keep it of these two. This one's a big one because it feeds a little bit more into Theatrical Deluxe Edition, but it has one entry, one inclusion that has been long asked for. And it looks like we're finally getting, but with a major caveat. So starting from the top, you see that it says, like that previous leak from Axiom Figures, who, like I said, has posted documents before, and he's been kind of on the money. He's been averaging like a 90%. So, I would strongly listen to that one more so than this one, but at the same time, there's some really major overlap here that I think is a little bit on the believable side. So you have 7-inch Deluxe Theatrical Edition Brandon Routh Superman, as mentioned before. Once again, Christopher Reeve. So it makes me wonder what's going to be different from the Collector's Edition unless we're stripping that away. And it kind of, like I said, gives me this vibe that from now on, any figure that is lifted from live action, whether it be a movie or a TV show, is going to be labeled Deluxe Theatrical Edition and no longer going to be called Collector's Edition. And collector's edition is just going to be towards comics, maybe games, and that's it. So that's why I look at the Christopher Reeve here, and I'm like, what's going to be different about it? What's going to be different about Christopher Reeve? What's going to be different about Henry Cavill? Like I said, I'm hoping that at the last minute they're going to retroactively overhaul this guy to look more like he did in Man of Steel as opposed to BVS. Because we've already gotten plenty of BVS or Justice League Henry Cavill Superman figures. Then in the middle, it looks like our next big deluxe theatrical edition, which makes complete total sense with contractual ties to the DCU currently. It would be the Superman movie. So you're going to have the Millie Alcock Supergirl. Did I say Superman? Supergirl movie. Deluxe theatrical edition. New movie, of course. Lobo, played by Jason Momoa. Supergirl movie, of course. Lobo's bike included. So this is all going to be basically one big wave. And then it doesn't look like it's going to be a collector's edition, but on her own, it looks like we are getting a little bit more of CW representation, and the Melissa Benoist Supergirl is going to get her own figure. Again, it doesn't look like it's going to be a collector's edition or deluxe theatrical edition, but she is finally getting a brand new figure. According to this, and according to some people saying that some retailers that, like, for example, this guy's saying that never heard of Infinite Toys before. They look to be based in Mexico. Some people were saying that some of these retailers are trusted and have called it before on certain figures, saying that, yeah, they are coming through. According to this retailer, and to this page right here, this document, Jack Nicholson Joker is finally coming. Sorta. In parentheses, it says right here, 7-inch deluxe theatrical edition 1989 Joker, Jack Nicholson inspired, quote unquote, with removable hat. So I guess they waited it out and waited it out and waited it out, and finally they bit the bullet and said, you know what, I guess our only alternative, since it doesn't look like the rights are coming, it doesn't look like we were able to come to an agreement with the Nicholson estate, they finally said, screw it, we're going to make a Nicholson Joker, but it's just not going to have his likeness. And we're telling you right now, from the get-go, don't expect a strong Nicholson likeness. And the fact that it's called Jack Nicholson Inspired means that, if anything, he's probably going to have like a comic book look to his head sculpt in terms of the way that his face is molded. But he's just going to have the paint application that he had in the movie. But in terms of the head sculpt and the likeness, he's probably going to look like he did in the comic. In whatever comic story arc was happening at the time in 89. Or, well, no, I was going to say, wasn't there an 89 Batman movie comic adaptation? But that would probably be redundant, and it'll probably bring up the same problems, because I think in that comic they did utilize Keaton's likeness, Nicholson's likeness. And then I have this separate post on Reddit on the Articulated Plastics subreddit saying, love that Joker. New rumored DC listings imply McFarlane Toys Jack Nicholson theatrical edition. So we have a second source corroborating, saying, yeah, it looks like it might be coming in the coming months. So yeah, it looks like it's happening, but like I said, I think that was probably the compromise that they needed to nail, is to basically make the bulk of the figure in terms of, if anything, what's a bit more on the believable side, they probably have the blueprints and the prototype for the body ready to go. They probably said, hey, we've scoured the internet, we looked at what people have been saying, and we know that the demand has been incredibly, incredibly high for Nicholson Joker. Ever since we even touched the 89, probably not even the 89 series, when they touched Keaton's Batman, when they touched Keaton's Batman for the Flash movie back in 2023, I think people immediately were like, 89 wave. So the 89 suit from that Keaton was wearing from that movie, but then Nicholson Joker, Vicky Bale, the henchmen, and then of course vehicle-wise, the Batmobile and the Batwing. The only thing they haven't done is the head sculpt because obviously they need licensing rights for the likeness. And Nicholson, along with his stay, is like, no, I'm done. And probably through very consistent negotiations, persistent even, they probably, I think these rumors going around about these retailers saying, hey, it looks like it's coming, but we did get some information in the titling of the release, and the official title of this release has in parentheses Jack Nicholson inspired. So my best guess is that, like I said, they're probably going to use a head sculpt that is lifted from the comics, like Silver Age Joker or whatever, like I said, series was going on in the 80s. Or, and this would be wild, they release it without a head sculpt. So that then you can get like a third party to develop one for you. I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll be kind of like, just to see an empty headless head there in the box. But I also would not necessarily rule it out. Like I said, I know it's a wild take, and I don't necessarily want them to do that, but at the same time, we can't really rule out that scenario. I don't want them to do it, but we can't rule it out. So what do you guys think of this list that includes potential revisits to Superman properties that need to be checked off, including the Brandon Routh Superman, potentially a Man of Steel Cavill Superman as opposed to a BVS one, although it sounds like they might be retreading BVS again. The perplexing nature of a revisit to Christopher Reeve, only this time as a deluxe theatrical edition as opposed to collector's edition like it was last year, and whether or not that's going to muddy the terminology of the line of the branding of what's constitutes as collector's edition and deluxe theatrical edition, and which one gets your best bang for your buck. What do you guys think about that? Because this could redeem them after this fallout with the Fallout figures. But at the same time, there's still some questions lingering. There's a big sunshiny spot with this whole Jack Nicholson theatrical edition release. There's a couple of other things included here that I'm looking at and going, what does this mean? Because right now, the deluxe theatrical edition concept is starting to lose me, if I'm being honest. At first I thought it was cool, but then I'm like, okay, so it's just collector's edition, but less, if anything, but for the same price. It's a lot of parallels happening where the parallel between this and the video game industry, where like recently, for those of you who don't know, Game Pass raised their prices, but nothing's changing. You're not adding perks. You're not adding any other cool benefits. I'm like, what the are we doing? This was also posted on the McFarlane Toys subreddit. Don't ask me what this writing is right here. I don't know what it is. As well as like the prices, but apparently it's yet another leaked list from a retailer, from a supposed retailer, I think. It says leaks for the upcoming figures. Just saw these from a previous Facebook post. And it looks like it's sort of regurgitating the same stuff that we've already covered, just organized a little bit differently. So, of course, you have DC Multiverse, Basic, Black Condor, Starman, Gagbuster, Larfreeze, Shazam, Batman related. So, Batman Hush 2, which we mentioned before. Damian Batman from Bethlehem, I guess. Batman 90s. White Lantern Batman. Batman and Justice Gang. Then Collector's Edition, there's that Freddie Freeman, Captain Marvel Jr., so probably comic-based. Black Canary, Vigilante. Oh, no. Yo, I think who called it? Skelly Bones, I think you're right. It's not going to be the show Vigilante. It's going to be comics. It says All-Star Squadron. It doesn't say Peacemaker Show. Why would you make the comic Vigilante and not the Peacemaker Show Vigilante? Unless you turned heel when the announcement was made that there's currently no plans for season 3, and you probably thought, why make Vigilante from the show if the show is kind of potentially over now? I know James Gunn technically said never say never to the concept of a season 3, but right now he just doesn't have those plans. Damn it. The Joker doesn't say which Joker it is, and then there's that Lobo and Supergirl. Although those are not from the movies. I think that's first appearances. Mongol versus Kryptonian suit Superman. I'm guessing that's a 2-pack. And then here, I don't know why they have to put these cutouts, but it looks like here's kind of shedding light on the whole deep dive into more Superman cinematic stuff as their deluxe theatrical wave. So Superman Returns, just like I mentioned before, BVS Superman, although, like I said, it shouldn't be BVS, it should be this one, Man of Steel. It shouldn't be BVS, it should be Man of Steel. 78 Superman, which we've already gotten. Joker Dark Knight. What else are we going to do? Oh, no. I just realized. He's going to have a cloth cape like they did recently with the Crisis on Infinite Earths Page Puncher Joker. Watch. Watch. That Joker is going to be... Because this is the first mention of this Joker. This is the second mention of this Bane. They're both going to have cloth capes. I mean, cloth coats. Bane is probably going to have the same coat that he had in that Platinum. Only he's probably going to have 1 or 2 extra accessories to warrant a re-release as a deluxe theatrical edition. This Joker, on the other hand, he's probably going to have... They might bring back the stack of money that he had in his Build-A-Figure Wave release. He might have... the coat is probably going to be not only made out of that wool, like the Penguin over here, but even then, I wouldn't blame anybody if they're sick and tired of seeing this Joker right here, because we've gotten now Dark Knight Joker from McFarlane. As much as I love that Joker, I will admit, this is what, release number 3? Because we had the original, 4-ish. We have the original Build-A-Bane from the Dark Knight Trilogy wave. We had the jail cell box set. That was a McFarlane Toy Store Gold Label exclusive. We had the Sonar variant, where he's like blue and translucent. This would be number 4. Actually, no, this would be number 5, because number 4 was that Jokerized version they tried to do. Yes, a Jokerized Joker. So you can Joker while you Joker. Maybe it's Nurse Joker. So I heard that there's something going on where both Warner Brothers and the Heath Ledger estate will not give the rights to make figures out of him in the nurse outfit from the movie. I could be wrong, but I remember, and this is a perfect segue, since this was brought up in Will Foxification's stream when he was talking about upcoming artisan releases regarding the Joker from both either InArt or Hot Toys. And I think somebody was bringing up Nurse Joker, but I think one time he said that they don't want to do that. I don't know how true that is. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know if it's like a integrity thing. I don't know what it is. But apparently, like, that's the only one that they're like, no, don't do that. It's an iconic image of him walking away. One that is embedded in cinematic history because of the great improv skills by Heath Ledger when the bombs weren't working. But yeah, that's what I heard. Because otherwise, if that wasn't the case, from what I hear, again, strictly rumors, take it with a grain of salt. But if it wasn't for that hindrance, that licensing hindrance, we actually would have already had some like kind of artisan prototype, at least, of Nurse Joker from the Dark Knight circulating. Maybe they can get this guy. Maybe they can make the figure out of this guy. Hold on. Norman Dessing. Jack Nicholson lookalike.